If you know anything about roller coasters, you know that Iron Gwazi has been hyped up as one of the best roller coasters in the world since it opened in 2022. It was originally supposed to open in 2020, but of course pandemic delays pushed it back 2 years. And I got to see the ride for the first time in 2023, but I played my cards completely wrong. I absolutely fumbled because I was trying to save Iron Gwazi for last, and by the time I got around to Iron Gwazi, Florida weather closed the ride for the rest of the day. So I absolutely fumbled in 2023, but luckily in 2024 I was able to get back to Busch Gardens Tampa and I got 2 laps on Iron Gwazi. I would have gotten more, but the operations on this ride are absolute trash. They're awful. I made a full video about the operations for this roller coaster in particular because they're just that bad. Obviously, I don't mean any disrespect to the operators that work the ride day to day, but I feel like the way that the park is treating their employees through their policies is really problematic and it needs to be changed. Not to sound like a basic roller coaster enthusiast, but RMC is absolutely one of my favorite roller coaster manufacturers. So I was very, very excited to ride Iron Gwazi for the first time because this is absolutely considered to be one of the best RMCs. If you're curious, I do have a ranking video of the RMCs that I have ridden, so I recommend that you check that out if you have not already. But let's dig in with Iron Gwazi. Before we get started, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. I am a pretty small roller coaster and theme park YouTuber, so I would greatly appreciate your support. The channel has been doing pretty well recently, and I hope to keep that ball rolling. I'm trying to be more consistent with these uploads, so your support absolutely means the world to me. First things first with Iron Gwazi is that this was a conversion of a dueling GCI wooden roller coaster, and they converted that into a hyper hybrid. So the conversion is absolutely insane. There's some awesome videos out there about how they did this, and they did it very well. This layout is absolutely crazy, but because of Busch Gardens' inefficient policies, the line for Iron Gwazi absolutely sucks. The operations are terrible. They're very slow, dispatching trains with like 0 sense of urgency despite the massive line that this attraction gets on a regular basis. Just to summarize that video that I mentioned, there's an inefficient locker policy, which is very frustrating. I honestly feel like Iron Gwazi has worse operations than Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm, which is saying something because the ops at Ghost Rider suck. It's so bad. At one point when I was waiting for Iron Gwazi, someone puked on the train and it added way too much time. Like usually that could be like a 5 to 10 minute delay at like a normal theme park, but at Busch Gardens it was like 20, 25, maybe 30 minutes. It just took way too long, and then they only cycled it one more time after they cleaned it before they started loading guests again. Because the ops are not the best, I only got to ride Iron Gwazi twice, which is kind of disappointing. I was visiting from the other side of the country and I only got to ride my most anticipated roller coaster twice, even though I literally dropped so much money on Quick Queue, and Quick Queue only gets you 1 ride on Iron Gwazi per day. Even with Quick Queue, it was a 25 to 30 minute wait for Iron Gwazi, which is just absolutely insane. My first ride was actually a rope drop for Iron Gwazi, and it was a 45-minute wait, like very early in the morning, which is just absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. So for both rope drop and Quick Queue, it just took way too long. But I'm just gonna get this segment out of the way so we don't have to address the operations again, because I want this video to focus on the absolutely insane ride experience that Iron Gwazi provides. In terms of presentation, it is very well done. Iron Gwazi is kind of like in the middle of the park. I'm not the biggest fan of Busch Gardens' layout. Like it's basically a massive donut. It's kind of like the reverse of the Disneyland layout where you can't walk in the center of the park, but it's just one big circle. And Iron Gwazi is in the middle of that circle. For that reason, it can be difficult to get views of this attraction. Like you can't really get next to Iron Gwazi, which is kind of a bummer. In front of the attraction where the station is, it does look very imposing. It's definitely a very tall ride. I'm not a fan of the name. Like obviously the GCI was called Gwazi, but Iron Gwazi is just kind of stupid. Like Busch Gardens saw that Fiesta Texas had a one coaster called Rattler, and then they renamed it Iron Rattler. But Iron Rattler sounds good. Like that's a good name on its own. And then you throw in the historical significance of the old Rattler roller coaster, and that just adds a layer to it. But Iron Gwazi, without knowing the historical significance of the Gwazi name, it just sounds stupid. Like what is an Iron Gwazi? Gwazi, you know? Out of the premier roller coasters in North America, Iron Gwazi might have the dumbest name, at least in my opinion. But that's a total nitpick, it really doesn't matter. I do appreciate when the RMC name ties into the old wooden coaster that was the foundation for the attraction. But I mean, you could have taken the Hershey Park approach where they renamed Wildcat's Revenge, like something like Gwazi's Revenge makes more sense than Iron Gwazi, but whatever. Busch Gardens can do what they want, I guess. So we're gonna dig into this ride experience. So this was my second Hyper Hybrid after Steel Vengeance. And the ride experience on Iron Gwazi is absolutely awesome. If you know me, you know I'm not the biggest fan of RMC lap bars. I talked about that in my Lightning Rod review video, which is another awesome RMC. But the lap bars on Iron Gwazi are a little different, like they're the more modern version of the RMC trains. And the lap bar really doesn't come down on you, like it locks in place, which is very, very good. Like I still held onto it because I did not want to get stapled because I knew I only had a limited amount of time to get laps on Iron Gwazi because of the operations, so I wanted to make the most of them. On both of my rides, I sat on the left seat for two specific elements that I'll mention later. My first ride was near the back row, and then my second ride was in the very back row. So I did not get to experience Iron Gwazi in the front, which is a bummer. After you roll out of the station, you're gonna enter this little pre-lift section. It's kind of just a steep drop, like there's not really much to it like some RMC pre-lift sections. And it kind of crunches you into your seat when you're in the back, which isn't the most comfortable, but it is what it is. Then you're gonna start up this absolutely massive lift hill. This truss structure is very visually impressive. Like I just love the way it looks. It's very minimalist, and you can there's some corners of Busch Gardens where you can get an awesome view of the lift. It's just very imposing and it looks so cool. I'm a big fan of this design. And the first drop on Iron Gwazi is absolutely insane. It's probably one of my favorite RMC drops. It is technically the steepest RMC drop by 1 degree, but it just felt like a vertical drop. I didn't necessarily feel like I was going beyond vertical, but the airtime is very strong, and I thought it was better than the drop on Steel Vengeance. I do feel like the drop on Steel Vengeance does pull out a little earlier, which could be the reason for that, but I'm not 100% sure. But the drop is absolutely a highlight, and I know a lot of people overlook it because this layout is just absolutely insane, so it's kind of easy to forget about the massive drop, but it's 100% one of the best RMC drops. It's probably between this and Iron Rattler. Iron coasters know how to drop, I guess. That first valley is actually very intense. I totally grayed out, so that's a really powerful moment. And then you're gonna crest up into an outer bank. The outer bank on Steel Vengeance might be my favorite element of all time. Like that's just a wild airtime moment. It's so sustained. It's so powerful. It's just so much fun. The one on Iron Gwazi is profiled a little differently. It's almost like this element is a turnaround as an outer bank, which is really interesting compared to the outer bank on Steel Vengeance, which is basically just a right turn. Like you turn 90 degrees compared to 180 degrees. But the profiling is different because when you're cresting into the element, you're like banking normally, and then you twist out the opposite direction in the outer bank, and then you drop all the way back down to ground level. So having that transition near the top of the element definitely adds a different dynamic to it, but I do 100% prefer the sustained airtime of just having that constant outer bank, which the one on Steel Vengeance has. That transition, when it curves up and then twists out, did not feel whippy, which I've heard a few people describe it as whippy, but in my opinion that was not the case. But the sustained strength of the airtime on the outer bank is absolutely a highlight of the attraction. It's just an insane sensation, and I'm so happy that more roller coasters are having moments like this. Like I love outer bank turns. This is absolutely insane. That gray out from the valley was sustained all the way up to the crest of the outer bank, so it's just a very intense moment. The diversity is very impressive, and it's probably my favorite element on the attraction. I love outer banks. Just because it's not as good as the one on Steel Vengeance in my opinion doesn't mean that it's not a fantastic element. I love this moment. Once you reach ground level, you're gonna curve up into the death roll, which was not as violent as I thought it would be. Like the death roll has been hyped up as one of the best inversions in the country, so my expectations for it were sky high, which is kind of unfair. Like I said, I did rope drop this attraction, and then I rode it a second time in like midday, so I didn't get to ride Iron Gwazi when it was like fully warmed up, or I didn't get to ride Iron Gwazi at night. Obviously in an ideal world I would have preferred to do that, but in 2024 I just wanted to ride the freaking thing because of trauma from 2023. I did not want to fumble 2 years in a row, bro. I just wanted to get on the ride. And unfortunately, I had a limited amount of time at Busch Gardens Tampa in 2024, so I was unable to stay later in the day to get more laps on Iron Gwazi. So the death roll might be the biggest casualty of that, because in my opinion, it wasn't aggressive at all. Like the snap at the crest of the element where the inversion begins was aggressive, but the rest of it felt like a very floaty inversion, not unlike the barrel roll down drop on Twisted Timbers. It just felt very floaty and not whippy. I love floaty elements, like that's kind of right up my alley, so I'm not complaining, but it's just not what I was expecting, you know? Like I was expecting one of the wildest inversions I've ever experienced, and I would not say that that's the case. From my experience on Iron Gwazi, it felt like a faster version of the barrel roll down drop on Twisted Timbers, which again is not a bad thing. It's just not as violent as I thought it would be. After the death roll, which by the way, it is really cool that it's named after a maneuver that the crocodile does to like kill its prey. And a Gwazi is like half crocodile, so love that. And Death Roll is just a really cool name. The name is definitely more violent than the element, which is kind of funny. But anyway, after that, you're gonna crest up into an overbank. This is very fast paced. It like jams you in your seat, has a good amount of G-force, and it is pretty steep, which is pretty fun. But I wouldn't say it's like one of the best parts of the ride, you know? But after that, you're gonna get thrown into what is one of the best parts of the ride, which is this sideways airtime moment over the station, which is so powerful. It's insane how strong this moment is. It absolutely chucks you out of your seat. It tries to eject you into space while you're sideways. It's insane. I've never felt a sideways airtime moment as powerful as this one. It's just so much fun, bro. Like the contenders for best element on this attraction are definitely this moment and the overbank that we talked about earlier. And it's very, very close. It's kind of hard to decide. But I did hear the hype about this moment before I rode Iron Gwazi. Like I was just so excited to ride this ride. I couldn't stop watching videos about Iron Gwazi. I wanted to hear everyone's opinion about this ride. And a lot of people hyped this moment up, so I was really excited to experience it, but I didn't get the surprise that I feel like a lot of people did. Before this ride opened, I don't think anyone expected this to be such a strong highlight of the attraction, and it absolutely is. But it did live up to the hype that other people created. It's just so much fun. After that, you're gonna pop up, and that's actually a very powerful airtime moment. It feels like something that you would find on Twisted Timbers. It's just so much fun. The pacing on this ride is amazing. Like, it's absolutely hauling. But I would make the argument that the most surprising airtime moment on Iron Gwazi, at least for me, was the wave turn before the stall. This sideways moment is very, very powerful as well. Obviously, it's nowhere near as strong as the one that you just experienced over the station. This is still a very, very, very strong moment. And I feel like a lot of people overlook it because it's not as insane or as sustained as the first one. But it is still absolutely a very, very strong airtime moment. And I love it. It's very powerful. So after that, you're gonna curve up into a stall. In my opinion, it felt very similar to the one on Twisted Colossus where you're just sitting upside down, but you don't really get hang time. But my favorite part about this stall was the transition out of it. It was very whippy and very shocking. Like just watching the POV, it doesn't look that different from other transitions out of a stall, but it just hit different for me. I don't know why. It was snapped you back upright. This was more violent than the death roll, to be honest, which was not on my bingo card. After that, Iron Gwazi is gonna transition into two bunny hills. This curve into the first bunny hill did have some decent G-forces, and the first bunny hill itself is an alright airtime moment. Like, it's definitely not a standout, but the second one was way better. It was very surprising and absolutely amazing. I expected it to be very similar to that first bunny hill, but it was way, way, way better. That second one absolutely blew me away. And then you're gonna have one more drop down before you hit the brake runs. And that final drop is a very solid airtime moment. It is very, very strong. And that is the layout on Iron Gwazi. So to be honest, this ride isn't the longest thing in the world. I really, really, really wish I got to do it more. The dream would be to go to Busch Gardens Tampa on an off-season weekday and just absolutely lap Iron Gwazi. So I hope to do that at some point in my life. We'll see if that ever happens. Like, I want to give this ride the Fury treatment, because in 2024 I went to Carowinds like basically specifically for Fury, and I lapped that ride 20 plus times, and I want to do the same to Iron Gwazi. I want to get 20 plus laps on this ride because the layout is just so much fun. It's an absolutely insane layout. I love the sideways airtime for the outer bank and the one over the station. Of course, that second wave turn. And I want to give the death roll another chance because I feel like I didn't experience the element to its full potential, and I want to get back on that drop. That first drop is absolutely amazing. So there's just so many insane moments packed into this layout, and I want to do it again and again and again. Walking away with just 2 rides, I'm still very, very happy. It's an absolutely incredible attraction, and it's one of my favorite RMCs. I did not include Iron Gwazi in that ranking video that I mentioned earlier. I didn't ride it before I made that video, but as of now, I would say Iron Gwazi is my second favorite RMC. So it ranks ahead of Lightning Rod and just behind Steel Vengeance. I know a lot of people rank it in front of Steel Vengeance, but I feel like that's just kind of the shiny new toy aspect of it. Like, I feel like a lot of coaster enthusiasts just rank whatever the hot new ride is as their number 1, which is fine. You're 100% allowed to do that, but just on paper, Steel Vengeance is like so much longer than Iron Gwazi, and I feel like it has so much airtime. In my opinion, it's really not close. Like, you could make the argument that Iron Gwazi has a better diversity of elements and forces, but I completely disagree. Like, Steel Vengeance has that insane off-axis hill. Steel Vengeance has sideways airtime. The stall on Steel Vengeance is like just as snappy as the stall on Iron Gwazi, and Steel Vengeance almost has like a reverse death roll where you're rolling up into the structure instead of rolling down out of the structure like the death roll. And obviously Steel Vengeance just has way more track length than Iron Gwazi. Plus, you add that element where the second half is basically all within the structure of Steel Vengeance, and it's just not even a competition. That's not to diminish Iron Gwazi though. It is 100% an incredible attraction. It's just not quite at the level of Steel Vengeance, in my opinion. I'm sure many of you disagree. I'd love to have a discussion going in the comments down below. Please let me know what you think of this ride, what you think of my review. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What do you disagree with? Please let me know down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you later.